Hare Krishna. So, for today's session, I would like to welcome all of you. But before welcoming all of you, let me introduce what are we going to do today. So, ever wondered certain questions in your mind, like why things are not in my control? Or how we are going to deal such a crisis situation in the current world where everything is not in our hand? Well, to address certain kind of questions only, the team Evolve Pune and the director of Evolve Pune, His Grace Madan Sundar Dasji, has organized this session, dealing with COVID crisis through the wisdom of Bhagavad-gita. Before going ahead, this particular series, which is going to have, we are going to discuss the 6 basic questions of our day-to-day life through the 11 sessions. The sessions are going to be of 1 hour, from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. on a daily basis. So without a delay, let me introduce first our speaker, His Grace Madan Sundar Dasji, to all of you. Madan Sundar Dasji holds a master's degree in electrical and computer engineering from the Ohio State University, USA. He has worked at Juniper Networks, USA as a research engineer and was awarded with the prestigious Employee Excellency Award for his research efforts in 2011. Inspired by the message of Bhagavad-gita and life of Srila Prabhupada Ji, ISKCON's founder Acharya, he returned to India in 2012 and joined ISKCON as full-time student of Vedic Arts and Science. With their encouragement from teachers and friends, he started the corporate education and empowerment forum called Evolve. Currently, he is acting as a director of this Evolve forum, which holds the phenomena of sublime living and high thinking. The Evolve team conducts regular cultural and educational events for corporate, teachers, and students across Pune, and not only in Pune, globally also, and in India also, through virtual as well as physical platforms. Notably, the lifestyle management, mind management, themes of Mahabharata, Ramayana are the most sought after courses and are highly appreciated by all attendees. His Grace Madan Sundar Dasji designed courses not only for youth, he also organizes courses for corporates. He also organizes courses on the Vedic education for children. He has conducted sessions at various corporate offices like TTL, Persistent, Accenture, Sterling Healthcare, Lumex Industries, Symbiosis, to name a few. His goal is to bring mindfulness into the workplace, increase self-awareness, and promote positive linking. Now, with this theme only, from today onwards, we are going to start our series on dealing with crisis situation, specifically the COVID situation, where we are going to have lots of negative thoughts in our mind. We don't understand how we are not able to control situation. And today's session is going to start with, is God in control? Now, starting with this particular theme, let me just introduce what are the terms and conditions for this particular session. We are going to have a 1 hour session, and all our questions and answers will be taken by His Grace Madan Sundar Dasji at the end of the session. So you can note all your questions, all your queries, whenever you are having on a notebook. So I request all of you to carry a notebook, or maybe you can type somewhere and keep it handy. At the end, that means after 8 p.m., we are going to have 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A sessions where we'll discuss your queries and Prabhuji will answer it. We request all of you to be on mute. We are trying, or anyways, we are controlling it from our end. And please be thoroughly enjoy this particular session. Please be engaged during the session, because this session you are going to have lots of take-home lessons. Without a much ado, I request His Grace Madan Sundar Dasji to take it ahead this particular session and enlighten us on how to deal with COVID crisis situation. So you must be having lots and lots of questions. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, over to you. Prabhuji, you are not on. Yes,
Okay, is it working now?
yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you all for joining in for the series that we are starting, titled as Deal with COVID Crisis, based on the wisdom of Bhagavad-gita. First of all, I would like to welcome each one of you on behalf of the whole team who just a week ago decided, why don't we have a sessions based on Bhagavad-gita? And maybe the wisdom of Bhagavad-gita can actually bring out some ray of hope, and the wisdom may help us to deal with the ongoing crisis. So on that basis, we have decided to have the series. And also our sincere prayers to all those who had to face serious troubles, and for some, those who lost their relatives and beloved in the case of this pandemic. So our sincere prayer to all of them. And we'll begin with this presentation for today. And thanks to Mother Dipasha for hosting the program and having us, all of us here together. So the title of this program, or the series that we have, as you can see on the screen, is Deal with COVID Crisis. So all of us are pretty familiar now what COVID is. I'm not going to speak anything about it, but I just want to give a little historical context of the word crisis. For most of us, what is going on today probably had been the worst crisis in our life. At least in my duration of life in this world, I have not seen such a kind of situation where we had a lockdown and whatnot. But if you look at the history of this world, just the last 100 years, if I do a quick recap of it, if you look at it, there was never ever a time when there was no crisis faced by the world, faced by any country or any society. In the first decade of the century, last century, there was the First World War, followed by the rise of communism in 1918. Then just within another decade, there was a great economic depression, or 1927, if I'm correct. And after another decade, there was a rise of a dictator, Adolf Hitler, which was followed up by Second World War. And then we had the decolonization, where the British and all of the countries who had created the colonies all over the world, they began to gain freedom, like India gained freedom in 1947. And it was a massive, massive crisis in its own time, followed by the Cold War and the proxy war, and what to speak of the pandemics, the AIDS, and the flu, and the genocides, whatnot. There have been many, many to name in this particular context at this point of time. I would like to bring your attention to one particular crisis that happened around 5,000 years ago. That was at the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where a huge and one of the world's greatest battle took place between the two great warriors, or the family of the warriors, you can say precisely. One was fighting to defend Dharma, and other was fighting to defend his pride and false ego. And this huge war led to the death of 60 crore people. Literally, the whole world had assembled at the place called Kurukshetra, where such a massive battle took place. It was an unavoidable incident. However, this unavoidable incident led to something, I would say, as the greatest gift to the mankind, or the mankind can have. That was in the form of Bhagavad-gita. So it was at this point of time, one of the greatest crises faced by the world, faced by the nations, faced by the society, faced by the families, and faced by the individuals, because such a huge amount of, not the amount, there was such a large number of armies had assembled to fight. It was just like the whole world is about to come to an end. And at this junction of crisis, this text, or this word of Lord Shri Krishna, titled as Bhagavad-gita, was spoken to Arjuna. No doubt, over a period of time, there had been misunderstanding about this text. Some call it to be a mythology. Some call it to be, it's a message represented by a certain class of a society just to do racial or a religious discrimination, the casteism and whatnot. We're not going to get into the controversies or misunderstanding, but during the course of a discussion, we'll definitely address some of them. But primarily, we're going to focus through this series of discussion that we have planned out for all of you, is to focus on the knowledge which is given in the Bhagavad-gita that has the potential to transform the life of each one of us, that has the potential to equip us with the tools and the skill set to face the crisis, that has the potential to give us the courage to go through any crisis or any situation that really, really bogs us down, and also to give us the intelligence to make right decisions in our life. And that is how this book of wisdom, this is what we're going to discuss and focus on primarily through our discussions here, to equip us with the tools and skill set, as well as to equip us with the right set of wisdom and to make and the courage to make right decisions in our life. To give you an example, Stephen Covey, one of the very famous authors, Seven Habits of Effective Leader, in that book, he writes something very interesting. And he says, between a stimuli and a response, as you probably can see on your screen, stimuli and a response. There is something happens, and based on that, we give a response. And he says, between the stimuli and a response, there is a space. And within this space lies our freedom. And within this freedom lies the secret of our success, growth, and happiness. In other words, the response that we make determines our well-being and the well-being of others. Therefore, it is very important to have a control on our responses. Probably all of us would agree, we don't have a control on the situation around us. Imagine you're traveling on a road, you're driving to your office, and suddenly there is a traffic jam. Can you do anything about it? So situations are beyond our control. But what is one thing in our control that we ought to miss out these days is our response. What is our response based on? The kind of response we give is based on our consciousness, or we can say is based on our inner world. Just like today, the external world, the world outside of us is faced with crisis. For many of us, the world, the inner world, our consciousness is faced with crisis. And when we are faced with crisis within ourselves, crisis means when our mind and consciousness is troubled by the feelings or the emotions of hatred, animosity, anger, greed, pride, envy, and etc., then our responses are governed or dictated accordingly. Therefore, this wisdom of Bhagavad-gita really helps us to understand, not helps us to understand, it actually fixes the crisis that is faced by every individual within themselves. And if the crisis is fixed here, as the saying goes, what we see outside is nothing but the reflection of our inner self. If the crisis that we each of us are faced within our own self is fixed, then definitely the situation outside would be far better, would be one of the subject matter through the course of this discussion. To begin with, what is this Bhagavad-gita all about? Or in other words, why should somebody study Bhagavad-gita? To give you a very brief answer for it, I would call or compare Bhagavad-gita more to a navigation system. Just like you get down from your house, go to the car, sit in the car, and you're about to drive your car to a particular destination. So these days, what people do, they take out their smartphone, they have a Google Maps, they type in their destination, and immediately Google Map finds a way, the shortest route to your destination, correct? Similarly, not only similarly, let me give you another thing that Google Map does. So it finds a shortest route to your destination. Along with that, when you're stuck in a traffic, it also reroutes you and helps you reach your destination in the shortest possible time. Similarly, the wisdom of Bhagavad-gita helps us reach our destination. It keeps us on the track. It keeps us on the track of the goal and the purpose of life. And whenever we are stuck in our life, the wisdom helps us navigate those challenges in our life so that we stay focused en route to our destination. But the wisdom of Bhagavad-gita helps us something more than what a navigation system can help. Wisdom of Bhagavad-gita also helps us to identify our destination. In any ordinary navigation application, you have to put into your destination. However, Bhagavad-gita helps us understand what should be our destination. Just like the Veda says, Asatoma sadgamaya tamsoma jyotirgamaya. Asatoma, from temporary, make your destination to the eternity. Tamasoma, from ignorance, make your journey or destination to the world of light or hope. Amrityam va amritam gamaya, from the world of death to the world of deathlessness or immortality, should be our journey or should be our destination. In essence, this book of Bhagavad Gita is a life transforming book, and many of us have experienced it in our own life. And whatever we have learned from our respected teachers, we are trying to share with all of you. So this book begins with a crisis, or you can say a confusion, which leads to an inquiry, and it ends with a clarity. And that is the importance of this wisdom. Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, and the one who wrote the commentary in English on Bhagavad Gita, he writes something very interesting on the 7th page of his commentary of Bhagavad Gita. And he says, the purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to deliver mankind from the nescience of material existence. In essence, to give us a new destination, to give us the direction to the world of eternity and happiness. What is it? We'll discuss as the time goes on. In essence, Bhagavad Gita speaks about 5 key subjects at large. So through this course of subject and discussion, we're going to focus on these key subjects. And after this course gets over, then we probably would do the complete Bhagavad Gita study course. We probably may have an 18-day sessions. We will cover all the 18 chapters. So in this Gita matrix, there are 5 subjects beginning with Ishvara, Jiva, Kala, Prakriti, and Karma. These are the 5 key subject matter that is being described in Bhagavad Gita. And that's for the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. Let's enter into the subject matter. And today's subject matter is the very first topic. Is God in control? So many times people these days are asking, first of all, why God is letting all this crisis happen in this world? In fact, some have begun to question, God really exists? Or else people are saying, does God really have control on what is happening in the world? Or things have gone beyond the control of the God? So that's the very first subject matter which we'd like to highlight today. But before we begin it, get into the subject matter, I'll quickly offer a short prayer, and then we'll begin our discussion on this topic. Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna. So let's begin with it. So very first question that should be asked in this context, does God really exist? Of course, as being an online session, I really don't have that an opportunity to ask you directly to give an answer, yes or no. But in case you have an option to write into the chat box, you can write an option among the 3, yes, no, maybe. Does God really exist? Let me give you a very short story and an example to help you understand. There was a village, and in the outskirts of the village, a great sadhu lived in the forest. So the village leader was always wanting to invite this great sadhu and speak to the villagers about the subject of God. But however, whenever the leader would approach the sadhu, sadhu would always say, no, later on. So finally, he convinced the sadhu, and because sadhu had arrived after a long time, and for the first time in the village, the whole village was assembled. There was a huge pandal program. Hundreds and thousands of people are sitting to listen from the sadhu. The leader welcomes the sadhu on the stage. There's a big uproar. There's a round of applause and whatnot. And the mic is given to the sadhu. Please speak. Tell us something about God. And sadhu said, well, I have a question for all of you. And he asked a question. How many of you believe that God exists? People were confused. Nobody had prepared themselves for such a kind of a question. And nobody raised their hand. And seeing the response, the sadhu turned to the leader and he said, well, nobody believes in God. If nobody believes in God, then what's the question of me speaking about the God? And he walked away. Everyone was confused. After such a great effort, he came and they again planned to call the sadhu, and they decided if the sadhu would ask this question ever again, we all would raise our hand. And that's what happened. The second time sadhu came, and again the sadhu asked, so how many of you believe in God? And this time 100% hands were there, not one, both the hands. They wanted to make sure the sadhu speaks. And sadhu turned towards the leader and he said, well, everyone knows about God. What is my need? And he again walked away. Now the people were really confused what to do. The sadhu is not speaking. How should we inspire him to speak? Then they decided next time when the sadhu comes, we'll divide the audience 50-50. 50% audience will say yes, and 50% audience will not say yes, or in fact would say no. And the sadhu came after a long time for the third time, again given a stage, given a mic, and he began to ask, so how many of you believe God exists? Left side of the pandal raised their hand, right hand side of the pandal kept quiet. Sadhu this time looked at the leader and he said, well, the left side of the audience says they know about God. So let the left side audience tell the right side audience about the subject of God, and I would leave. So what is the moral of the story? As the situation changes, so does the faith of the person changes. Same crowd, Edmund Panna said, have no clue about God exists. In certain situations, circumstances, everyone said God exists. In the third scenario, some said God exists and others said God does not exist. This raises a question. What makes us have faith on God? And there are 4 key points, or I would say the areas that leads us to have faith on the subject of God. First is D as an acronym, where D stands for desires. Many times people go to temple, oh, this is my 12th exam, please my God, help me pass. Oh, my dear God, I'm going to American Embassy to get my visa stamp. Please somehow get me visa. Or somebody's about to get married. Oh, my dear God, let us never get divorced. Let us always stay married and whatnot. Different. So people go because they have seen from their upbringing, from their childhood, whenever you have to make a prayer, go to the God, and there is somebody up on the altar who listens to you, and only God knows if he listens or not, but there is a sentiment there. That is to fulfill desires. U stands for fear of unknown. Just like one of the friends, he was a hardcore atheist, never believed in God. And suddenly, when he had to open his showroom, he called up the Pandit and he said, Pandit, I want you to come here and do puja and pat, all those rituals. So when I got to know, I was so surprised. I asked him, what happened? You have never believed in God? You said you're an atheist, you don't believe. And today, when you're opening a showroom, why are you spending money on doing all this puja and the rituals? Very interesting response he gave. And he said, well, I have spent more than 25 lakh rupees. This is almost 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. 25 lakh rupees had a value then. He said, I've spent more than 25 lakh rupees for the shop. If by an investment of 25,000 rupees, if that somebody up exists, can be pacified, what is the harm? So that is called as fear of unknown. S for social pressure. All of us, or I mean to say all of you would be living in some society. In Maharashtra, Ganesh Chaturthi. In Bengal, there is Navratri, Bengal, and in Gujarat, up north, there is Ram Navami, there is Krishna Janmashtami. Of course, these all are celebrated all across India, but I'm just saying specifically, these are some very important events in certain states of the country. So even if you really believe or not, there is a sense of social pressure. Oh, today there is a festival, everyone will be assembled. If I don't go, what would people think about me? So again, people turn up for such religious functions out of social pressure. And the fourth, which completes the acronym, is dust. It's T. T for traditions. Traditions, somebody have seen his or her mother doing certain activity and they continue it, calling it as a tradition. Just like many times the mothers in our society, they do certain vratas, certain vows. And I'm really not sure how many of these mothers really know what is this vow is meant for. Whom are they really addressing? Every month or almost every week, there is certain vow or certain, the austerity, which based on their traditional values, people are following. But the point is, which all of us would have experienced while growing up, at least I did that. I used to ask my parents, what is this? Why am I supposed to do this? Why we have to offer food to the Lord first on the day of Diwali? On the day of Diwali, a lot of sweets will come, and we were not allowed to eat until Lakshmi Puja would happen. Being a child was a big austerity. The sweets have come in the house since morning, and we're looking at the sweet, when can we eat it? And every time mother and father will come and say, no, you're not supposed to touch it. Why? Lakshmi Puja ke baad. Wait until Lakshmi Puja. So like that, and we always used to wonder, what is this Lakshmi? What is this Puja? Why Ganesh and Lakshmi is sitting together? What is their relationship? Neither their mother, father, their brother, sister. Why? And there's so many questions would come. So the point is, if you look at all these 4 reasons, either they're based on sentiments or they're based on some traditional values. But none of these are based on knowledge. In today's time, the current generation would not accept things unless it is logical, unless it could be proved. There are evidences for it. And that's the reason, at large, all of us, externally we may seem religious, but at large we have become atheists. In a context, some of us may say God exists. Some of may question, like the question for this session, is God in control or not? But actually, we really don't have any understanding. Just like a very fundamental question, if I have to ask you, you say God exists, you say God is there. Who is that God? Is a big question mark. People really get confused about it. So, can we give certain logical, scientific evidences to prove God exists? If yes, then I guess we have done justice. And in this session, with the given time we're going to primarily focus on this subject of evidences that actually proves God exists. If you're not yet convinced, at the end of the session, we have question answers. We can take it that time. So the first proof, creation implies creator. So it's an open-ended question for all of you. Any one of you has ever seen anything in this creation that has come by chance? There is only one thing in this creation that has come by chance. That is our own origin. That is the origin of the universe. Isn't it? Big Bang Theory, by chance. The origin of species. There is a whole subject matter called origin of species, which says somehow the unicellular organisms combined together and multicellular, and then they became complicated cellular organisms like us and whatnot. Except for our origin, which the science says happened by chance, is there anything else that you know of could have happened by chance? Actually not. For an example, even to make an artificial flower, what all would you need? Definitely you need a brush, you need a canvas or the paper, and the most importantly, you need a painter to paint it, yes or no? Now, just to make an artificial flower, you need a painter. What to speak about the real flower? Or the real flower can have come by chance, as the modern science claims. Look at the world around. There are sleek cars. Someone has manufactured it, no doubt. Elegant mobiles, somebody have designed it. The wonderful sculptures, someone have carved it. And look at the world around now. Do you think this whole massive creation that we have could have come by chance? Srila Prabhupada was walking on in a beach at San Francisco, and there was a beautiful sunrise. And one of the students of Srila Prabhupada said, Srila Prabhupada, look, what a beautiful sunrise. And Srila Prabhupada immediately responded, if the painting is so beautiful, how much beautiful the painter must be. Please take a look at the painting. All this incredible creation must be created by someone. Because we have become so caught up in our lives today, we miss out on the beauty of the nature that is all around us. And therefore, we never ask a question, can this fabulous creation would have come on its own? without a cause, without a person? Please ask this question to yourself while looking at this incredible video. Science tells us we came out of an explosion. If not anything else, when you look yourself in the mirror, look at yourself. Such an incredible personality and a creature could have come out of a Big Bang explosion or a chance theory, as what the science teaches us. Even a simple thing that we have with us has been created or manufactured by someone. How could it ever be possible? Such an intricate, such a complex, yet fabulous world where we live in could have existed on its own. So the question for all of you, shouldn't this universe have a super intelligent creator too? To give you an example, Isaac Newton was in his lab one evening. Well, let's put it this way. Isaac Newton was in his office. And in his office, there was a very interesting structure of the solar system. A fellow friend of Isaac Newton came to meet him, who was a hardcore believer in the Big Bang theory, the explosion theory from which the universe came, or the chance theory. And this fellow professor came to meet Isaac Newton. And when he looked at this intricate and interesting structure of the solar system, the professor said, as we all would say when we see something interesting, hey, who created it? Similarly, the question was asked by him, hey, Isaac, who created this? And Isaac immediately said, it happened by chance. And the professor said, are you kidding me? He said, no, last night I was in my lab, suddenly the light went off and I crashed against a locker that had so many nut bolts. Because I crashed against the locker opened and all the nut bolts fell on the ground. And after 10 minutes when the light came back, all these nut bolts which have fallen on the ground, they have assembled itself into this interesting model of a solar system. And that fellow friend of Isaac Newton began to laugh. What a joke! And Isaac said, well, you consider such an insignificant structure must have been created by a person. But when you talk about the whole creation of the world, you say that it happened by its own on chance. Doesn't make any sense. So every creation or creation implies a creator. So if we have this interesting world, interesting universe, there must be somebody who must have created it. That's the proof one, logical evidence. Let's go to evidence number 2. Law implies a lawmaker. Now, look at the orderliness in the universe. People with their eyes wide open, driving at the 40 kilometer per hour speed, yet they hit against the lamppost and meet an accident. When you have a person driving, an adult driving, so many accidents happen on the street. My question to all of you is, this planet Earth, you can call it as a vehicle because it's constantly moving, rotating and revolving. So the question arises, why this Earth have not ever met an accident? And not only Earth, there are so many cosmic entities which are all rotating and revolving in their orbits. Who is governing their movements? And not even a single of them have went out of their orbit and have faced an accident. So there must be a certain law. Take a look at it. Beginning from the atomic science, atomic structure, we name an element, immediately we can write a structure or configuration for it as we know of it, atomic structure. Then we have RNA, DNA, the molecular things, we have FCC, BCC structure. This is all, these are highly organized. They're governed by certain laws, which brings them together. And then ultimately we have this solar system. Probably in your science, if in your physics, you would remember, you would have read about, one is law of gravity that pulls us downward. And then there is another gravitational pull, which keeps centrifugal and centripetal force. If you remember in physics, there was one, that keeps you within the orbit, and second, that makes sure you're not thrown out. there are those two forces which are described actually. So if you see, this whole world is an orderly, harmonious, systematic universe. How did this all came about in such an amazing order? Not only this, not the macro world. If you look at the micro world to the macro world, either way, there are precise laws that governs the activity. For example, in a company, in a college, even in school, there's always attendance marked in the morning. And if you're late by a few minutes, then you're marked absent or your half-day salary is cut. So it's a law that ensures that the person reaches office in time. The question is, who has made the law? Did the law happen on its own? There are traffic signals. There are laws that governs the movement of the railway trains. The laws governs the movement of the planes and everything. From where did this law came? The point is, there was a lawmaker. Somebody made a law which governs it. It's not the traffic signal are working on its own. Do you remember a time at certain traffic lights after 10 o'clock or after 11 o'clock, the signal stops functioning? They have that for certain duration in a day, particularly in the night time, the signal doesn't work. And sometimes what happens, the signal actually gets spoiled. And when you go in the morning, the signal is still not working. How many of you remember? And at that point of time is an utter chaos on the street. You have traffic coming from all the four directions, isn't it? But when the signal is working, there is orderliness. So orderliness is there because there is a law. And there is a law because there's a lawmaker. And when there is no laws, this leads to chaos. So there is an orderliness in this creation. Who made the law is the question. Just like we have law of mechanics. So once upon a time in one of the school programs, I asked school kids, so who discovered the law of gravity? So who discovered law of gravity? Anyone here? Huh? Isaac Newton. But no, he did not discover it. Who invented? I asked a question, who invented the law of gravity? And they said Isaac Newton. I said, no, he didn't invent it. He actually discovered it because the law of gravity was existing. How did he discover it? One day he was sitting underneath the apple tree and the apple fell on the ground. Are you trying to tell me the apples did not fall before that day? Or before that day, when Isaac Newton actually thought about that law of gravity concept, if you throw a coin up, it will fly in the sky and will never come back. If a person would jump, would never come back to the ground, would go and fly. No, it was always existing from the beginning of the time. So what did Isaac Newton did was discover, did not invent. So if he discovered, which means the law existed, so question comes, who created that law? And that's the second evidence. Definitely it is not created by the US government or the NASA. So who created that law which governs this whole orderliness in the universe is an evidence that there is some higher power that exists. Proof 3, organization implies organizers. You have big industries, big companies, and you have this whole structure of the company, hierarchy, and you have hundreds and thousands of employees working in an orderliness, isn't it? You have a different set of departments. So if there is an organization, is it possible without having an organizer who is creating that? So if not, then look at this whole creation around. This incredible universe. How is it ever possible that it's functioning in such an organized manner without having an organizer? Who is controlling and governing it? And who's ensuring that everything remains in order and does not become chaotic? To give you an example, a superb organization requires a superb organizer. Honeybees example is given. They're known for their organization skills. Just one example. Now, honeybee, when they built their honeycomb, they built it into a shape which is called hexagonal. So the science discovered that the hexagonal shape is a perfect space which gives you the maximum volume of storage. So what are they doing in honeycomb? They're storing their honey. And they design it in such a way that gives them the maximum volume or the efficiency. So who gave this tiny creature known as honeybee this intelligence to create a structure which is so I would say, marvelous that it fulfills the need of the honeybees to the maximum possible extent. For a human being to do it, would have to go through 20 to 23 years of college and then do and attend architect, engineering, or whatever they call it. And then also, there's no guarantee he can create a single story house also or not, depending on his ability. But honeybee, without going to school or college, has an ability. So who gives this ability? To give you another quick example, is about a spider. Very interesting. Actually, most of the research happens by observing and studying the nature.
The spider is one.
Take a look at this, something very interesting.
The silky spider thread, less than 1 millimeter across, is 5 times stronger than steel of the same dimensions. This thread can stretch up to 4 times its own length. It is so light that a thread stretching 3 times around the world would weigh no more than 1 kilogram. All spiders produce threads with different properties, and these threads can be restored to their original states. A spider can easily turn a damaged web back into silk again. For example, the spider, Diadematos, uses the secretion glands in its abdomen to produce 7 different types of thread.
I hope this is all
The
audible.
DuPont Company, the world's largest manufacturer of chemical substances, initiated a major research study to examine spider thread. At the end of this long research, costing tens of millions of dollars, the molecular structure of spider thread was finally unraveled in the DuPont laboratories. Following that, this molecular structure was imitated to produce the strongest known material in the world, Kevlar. Although nowhere nearly as strong and resistant as spider thread, Kevlar is still the strongest material capable of being produced by man. Traveling at 150 meters a second, a bullet makes a hole in whatever it hits, yet it cannot penetrate Kevlar. Kevlar is used in the production of bulletproof vests, in aircraft carrier housers to bring planes to a halt, in mine shoes.
All right. The video continues. We'll share the video upon the website. You can watch it in detail. To give you the gist, I hope all of you got the gist. By studying the spider cobweb, they found out this, what they call as Kevlar, which is said to be the strongest found material. And they use it for the shoes that are used for landmine operations, for bulletproof car, and for different things. Now that spider web, which may seem so insignificant, has such a great strength. The question comes from, where did this spider got an ability to create something which is the strongest of all? And that was the point being raised here. So far we have seen 3 logical evidences. Law implies lawmaker, creation implies creator, and organization implies organizer. Let's take a look at one more evidence here. Energy implies an energetic. Just all of you would see in your house, just like here right now, there's a tube light. For a child, for a knife, when he looks at the tube light functioning and emitting a light, he may consider, or she may consider it to be a miracle. But for a grown-up person, it's not a miracle. He or she knows the source of the light, this thing which is glowing, the source is electricity. And that electricity is coming from a powerhouse, and that powerhouse which is controlled by a resident engineer. Ultimately, there is a person who is controlling this power source. And not only this, if you go back to from where does this powerhouse getting the electricity? That electricity is coming from a dam. And there you have again a person who's controlling the dam. and then the electricity, the turbines move because of the pressure of the water, and that it converts into an electricity. But who is managing it? There is a person. But look at one source of light and energy for all of us, which every morning, either call it shamelessly or whatever, every morning rises up and never ever ask us to pay a bill. This sun, the amount of energy emitted by it in a single second is not even comparable to the amount of energy consumed by the mankind on an average. In general, this is what the science says. So the question arises, who is the energetic person behind this tremendous energy? I know some of you, or most of you, from the scientific mindset, and those who have got into training in that schools, you will say, oh, well, there is a nuclear fusion happening. All right, we accept the nuclear fusion is happening. The question is, who started the nuclear fusion? Somebody must have ignited it, isn't it? To give you an example, imagine you're watching a TV and suddenly the stone comes flying. It goes across your ears and hits your TV screen, and it breaks your TV screen. What is the first question are you going to ask? Kisne phekare? If it's in Hindi, you say kisne pheka. If in English, you say, who threw the stone? You're not going to say, oh, somehow the stone flew in the sky, and because it was my bad luck, it came crashing into my room and broke my TV. Would anyone say like this? Not even the scientist who coined the Big Bang Theory would ever say like this. You would always say there must be some person behind it, which means the stone is representing an energy right now, because it's sort of carrying a movement, which means an energy. So who was the source of that energy? It means there must be some energetic, there must be some person who must have thrown the stone. And that's the whole point about it. So for every energy, there is an energetic. That was the fourth principle. So here, to raise a question to all of you, do you think really everything in this world is happening by chance? Or what has happened with us is happening by chance? I invite you to walk with me and look at the world around you and think about it for yourself. There are some people who are born beautiful. Some are probably not that smart. Fine. Some people are born rich, whereas some are born to a poor family. Some have very whitish or a fair complexion, and some have a dark complexion. Question is, who decides? Who decided all these things? Or who decides for us? Yes, you and I and all of us can choose certain things. We can choose. You have an option to choose your wife or husband, or the job, the car, the mobile, the laptop, whatnot, the apartment to live in, the 2 BHK, the 3 BHK, what TV show to watch, to study Bhagavad-gita, to attend this kind of a program. So not, you have the choice, but still there are certain things in our life on which we have no choice. Any examples which we have not chosen for ourselves? Things like our parents. How many of you here chose your parents? I'm not saying foster parents. I'm saying the parents who gave you birth. How many of you chose your face cut? How many of you chose your intelligence? How many of you chose your gender? How many of you chose your birth of place or your nationality? Of course, nationality can be changed later on. But the point is, these are the things we have not chosen. So question arises, who chooses? Is it all happening by chance? Your and my birth in this world has just happened by chance. And somehow we have taken birth in a particular family. We have got a particular set of intelligence. Is it really possible? So a question for all of you. Please think and respond honestly. Have you seen a complicated machine that has come by chance? Yes or no? And has no purpose? Even a simple machine, forget about complicated machine. Anything have you seen that has no chance, that has come by chance and has no purpose? If not, then ask for yourself how this whole universe, how you and I and all the living entities and this whole nature could have come by chance. For everything, we discussed 4 things today. If there is a creation, there must be a creator. If there is a law, there must be a lawmaker. If there's an organization, there must be an organizer. And there is an energy, there must be an energetic. There are more logical claims which we can discuss, but I guess for the given time that we have, these 4 logical claims should be enough, at least to give you this much hint that yes, there is somebody who is there, who is controlling, or who is the creator and whatnot. However, the subject matter has not ended yet. There are certain challenges to the existence of God. Very, very prominent. First, who created the God? And like that, there are a few more challenges, and that we'll discuss in length tomorrow. And then we'll discuss about what is the definition of God. So first question would be like, who created God, and few other challenges that we'll discuss about. We'll also discover the definition of God, and we'll also throw some light on how do we understand the subject matter of God. We're right now just discussing about God. We are not defining who God is. That will take later on. And with this complete understanding, at least we'll get to know there is some controller. But the question that we have raised in this session, is God really in control? That will address slowly and gradually, and that will understand as the session proceeds. So with that, we'll pause here for today's discussion, a short discussion that we have. We'll open the forum if you have any questions on the subject matter, and we'll continue this topic tomorrow again. So we have 6 topics, and for those 6 topics, for the first 5 topics, we're going to cover into 2 sessions of 1 hour each. And the last topic, titled as Yoga for Modern Age, that will cover in 1 session. So like that, we'll have total 11 sessions beginning from today, every evening from 7 to 8. And at 8, or when we end the session, after that, we'll have some question answers. So with that, we pause here. And just to give you a little glimpse of what we'll be discussing tomorrow. One is, who created God? And second challenge is, can you show me God? So we'll try to see God tomorrow. All right. With that, we pause here. Hare Krishna, and thank you. Back to the host, Mother Dipasha. If there are any questions back on Zoom or the YouTube, we can take it now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful explanation where you tried to explain that whether God exists or not, because I could see some of the participants on YouTube, they were having questions like, why do we perceive God as a human form? Why God has to have in a human form? Is it just
All
because
right.
we have imagination? So I believe you have tried to explain it, but if you can take this particular question, it would be great.
So, well, we'll be spending some time on the subject matter of what exactly God means. We'll do that tomorrow. But to help you understand, by definition, as given in the scriptures, the definition of God itself means that everything is possible for him. So, taking a human form is also very much possible. To say that God cannot have a human form or form like a human, then it means we are limiting the concept of God or the person of God or the personality of God. So yes, the God can exist in any form. The God exists in a fish incarnation called as Matsya incarnation. The God exists in the form of boar, that is called as Varadev incarnation. The God exists in half lion and half human, that is called as Nasimha incarnation. So God can exist in any form. That is all possible. When all living entities can exist in so many forms, as a human, the plants and the animals, and the beasts in the ocean, why can't God exist in all these possible forms? So yes, the God not only exists in human form, God exists beyond that also. That we'll discuss tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, there is one more question from Kashish, and it is like, why God created so many living entities, and what is the relationship we have with the God as well as these different entities?
A wonderful question. Any of the scripture of any of the faith or religion says that every living entity is part and parcel of the Lord, which means Lord is our supreme father and mother. According to Vedic concept, the supreme God exists both in the masculine and the feminine form, just like Sita Ram, Lakshmi Narayan, Radha and Krishna. So which makes them our eternal mother and father. Just like in a family, to give you an example, I was quoting this example elsewhere. This is something that happened when I was in my school days. In one of the evenings, it was raining very heavily and it was quite dark. And the offices and the colleges, whatever, all has ended. And people were really hurrying into getting into their transportation or the public transportation to go back to their respective homes. So in this particular bus stop, I saw something very interesting. There were a lot of people standing there, and suddenly a bus came, and all of these people were trying to get inside the bus, which was already full, already packed. And suddenly, among all this chaos, there was a sound of a tight slap, as if somebody has been slapped. Patak, jor se awaaz aayi. And as soon as there was sound of a slap, everything became complete silence because nobody could see what's going on. It was so dark, and plus it was raining. And in a few seconds' time, because the bus was so packed, nobody could get into the bus, and the bus went away. And now the crowd began to move away from each other because everyone was afraid I should not be the next one to get a slap. So nobody knows who slapped whom and what happened. The person who got slapped, he had put his hand on his face and he was wondering, Kisne mara? Kaun kisne mara? The person who had been slapped stayed there, and the person who had slapped this other person was also there. And at some point of time, there is another bus came, and when the bus came, the light, the headlights of the bus, because of which there was some light in that place. And then the person who was slapped and the person who slapped, they both were standing face to face. So the person who got slapped and the person who had slapped, they were relatives. The person who got beaten up was a bhanja, and the person who bit was a mama. And mama, bhanja saw each other. They came and they hugged. Oh, mama said to bhanja, beta, I'm so sorry I slapped you. I didn't know. Somebody tried to pull my shirt. I got so angry and slapped. And bhanja said, mama, I didn't know it was you, but nonetheless, I did not pull your shirt. Okay, whatever happened, they hugged each other and they forgot the conflict they had just because they were relative. Yes or no? So our Father, our eternal Father, God, if our eternal Father, and then if we see this whole world in that context, there cannot be any conflict and any crisis. Of course, we'll be speaking ahead in this series of discussion about why there are so many religious traditions, why there are so many scriptures, and of course, that are the cause of so much conflict also. That we'll be discussing ahead. But in one line, the Lord is our eternal mother and father, because as eternal mother and father, that's what makes us all connected to each other. Mamevams jiva loka jiva bhuta sanatana. Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, all are my part and parcel. All living entities are my part and parcel. And you can do a little exercise. You have a parent, your parent had a parent, the parent had a parent, parent had a parent, and you go back on the time. Ultimately, who was the source of this whole dynasty that you belong to? Was it apes? As Darwin said, probably not. Who else has to be the original creator? All right.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So to all our audience, we have opened a poll.
I can't hear you much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, are you able to hear me?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Is the sound audible?
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
The voice is quite feeble.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, are you able to hear me?
Yes, it is audible.
Haribol. So we have opened the poll for our audience. So I request all the audience to record their response on the poll. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, you are able to hear me? Can I take another
Oh,
question?
yes. Finally, I'm able to hear. So that's the whole irony with online sessions. We are really dependent on the mercy of some supreme controller, not knowing when it is working, when it's not working. Yes, please go ahead.
Prabhuji. So there's one common theme of questions which I can see from the YouTube as well as our Zoom. And so Anup Arora ji is asking question, and similar questions have been asked by other participants also. That if God is our supreme Father, then why he has created so much pain, or why he has created coronavirus? Very to the point question was this, and the other question:
Yeah, correct. Go ahead, go ahead.
that why he created so much pain, why there are so many problems in this world.
Good. Okay, so another classic question which is generally posed: if God exists, then why there are problems? Just like there is a sunlight, and then, or you can say there's a daytime, there is a nighttime. As an individual, we have a choice to perform our activities in the daytime or else in the nighttime. Just like an owl, it's not that it does not have the eyes, but keeps the eyes closed during the daytime and opens the eyes in the nighttime. Is a choice of the owl. Similarly, those who have turned their back away from the God are those people who are standing in the lap of the darkness, or are in the place where there are always crisis and pain and suffering. The choice is ours. And that's the reason, as I said in the beginning, the wisdom of Bhagavad-gita really equips us, gives us the wisdom to understand who am I, to understand the subject of God, our relationship. And not only that, gives us the courage to make the right decisions in our life. So as far as we are into this world, challenges are inevitable. But how do we respond to that challenges? Could be as tiny a problem, just like in a summer day when electricity goes off, it really agitates certain people. They feel so hot because of it. Similarly, in a winter season, if it becomes too chilly, too cold, and if you don't have a heater, then again it agitates and disturbs. So there would always be some other crisis. But how do we respond to a crisis? And the response to any of the situation is based on our consciousness that we have cultivated by our time spent in this world. And if our consciousness is based on our understanding of our relationship with the Supreme Lord, just like a simple example of a family where there is a child who always keeps asking from father, but he never says thank you to a father. If the father gives, he does not recognize this. And when the father does not give, he complains. So does it mean the father is not kind? Point is, we have decided not to be in relationship with the Supreme. We have decided to turn our face away. And when we turn our face away, is the time when we face crisis in our life. It's the time, it's like a child who have walked away from the shelter of his parents and is wandering on the street. What do you expect going to happen to the child? Would be faced with a lot of tribulations and crisis in the life. So again, the subject matter of Bhagavad-gita, as we build upon, would clarify some very common misunderstandings, like as I said, does God exist? Can you show me God? And others, like a question asked here, why God created pain and suffering. Now, on this question, I just want to make one more point, and then I would pass on to the another question. Just like certain times, you would remember probably your mother and father might have slapped you. Anyone have got slapped from their mother and father? Now, you being a mother and father, if in that's the case, have you slapped your child ever? Now, when a mother slaps a child, or when you have received a slap from your mother or father, it pains. But when the mother or father slaps a child, that is not out of hatred for the child. Yes or no? That is out of love and compassion, because they don't want us to commit the mistake that we are making again and again. So that slap to an ignorant person or ignorant child may seem as an action of hatred, may seem as a suffering, but that is actually not a suffering. It's a very temporary pain for a long-term benefit. And that is, what is that long-term benefit? Just like a child, many times they become stubborn for certain things that they want to eat or want to have, not knowing the effect of it on their health or their future well-being. But the parents have to take a strict action or a strong decision. And many times we all would remember certain instances in our life when we became pretty upset with our mother and father. They never do this for us. They never did this and not. They didn't buy me the car, or the car means the toy car, not the actual car, the toy car, and things like that. But when we grow up and then we look back into the past, we realize, thank God, our parents made that strong decision. All that was painful, but if I am here today and if I have been able to make my life well, it's all because of the actions taken by my parents in those days. So it requires certain wisdom to understand that even in the pain, even in the situation of suffering, actually there is a good done to us to bring us on the right track. But that subject matter requires a little maturity, and we'll be discussing that concept also ahead in one of the topics. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can we take one more question?
Speaking to camera, I'm entirely on the mercy of the person operating the camera. Or else, whoever is speaking all that, I don't hear any response back here. Hare Krishna.
Can we take one more question?
Yeah, we can take. Yes, yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. So another question or the related theme is coming is like that the deaths which are happening due to coronavirus or COVID, is it all because of the karma? And if it's so, then why the devotees also suffer? Like they are praising Lord, they are thanking Lord for each and everything they have got. And despite of that, even devotees or the good people face some bad situations or crisis situations.
Thank you. It's a very important subject, a very important question that you all are raising. And the question precisely boils down to, why do bad things happen to good people? So it requires a certain foundation to build up on before I can really answer this question for you. So I would request you all to hang on. In a couple of days, we'll be having a dedicated talk on this topic of why do bad things happen to good people. And then we'll take more questions on the subject matter. Regarding the subject matter of devotee, or for that reason, non-devotee, death is inevitable. Whoever we are, death is for certain. And not only that, there are three conditions which we all have to face. Adhibhautika Kalesha, Adhyatmika, Adhidaivika Kalesha. This is also a subject matter which we'll be discussing ahead. So as long as we are in a material condition, the laws of material nature always act, whoever it is. And what is the law of material nature? Whatever has taken birth has to die. You buy any product from a store, every product comes with an expiry date, yes or no? Which means it also has a certain duration of life. So therefore, that's the law of the nature. We are in this world, part of the law of nature always acts, so that we cannot avoid. But the very important thing which we need to understand, actually death is not the end of the journey. Death is a beginning of another journey and another opportunity. And that is itself a subject matter that I'll be covering from 2 or 3 days from now. And the subject matter of the biggest lie ever told to us. So to consider ourselves merely a body and to think that I just have this one life, I was born somehow and I would die, and after that nothing exists, is a big hoax, is a big lie. We'll discuss that again from the scientific evidence. So just to make it precise here, we'll be bringing on the subject matter of this, some questions, what we'll be taking here in this course, through what the Bhagavad-gita says and also what science says. And we'll try to see actually science and spirituality are not in conflict with each other. Actually, it aligns and they speak the same thing. But the only thing is sometimes the science that is taught to us is misconstrued or misrepresented. And therefore the scriptures that we are, in general, what is being spoken about scripture is generally in a very derogatory manner, that this has been written by some caveman, this is a fictitious and whatnot. We'll give you evidences for it. So Just hang on for a few days and you'll have the answers for it. And then it's up to you to decide where and what and how you want to live on your life. All right. Hare Krishna.
So we look forward to all these sessions, and there is one request also, Prabhuji, that along with why bad things happen to good people, I think people also want to know why good things are happening to bad people and how come they are able to enjoy where the good people are suffering.
Agreed. So just I didn't want you to make a subject matter negative. That's the reason I made why bad things happen to good people. But definitely we'll talk about why good things happen to bad people also. Both are interconnected question. So I guess with that we pause for today here. So, or is there any other question?
No more questions, Prabhuji. And we actually launched a poll to know that why our audience have joined this particular course, and I have just shared the results. And interestingly,
Okay.
half of the people are interested to explore the spiritual side of the life. That was the objective towards joining this particular course.
Oh, very happy to know that. Thank you. What are the options if you can read out, because I can't see anything. I have to really turn 90-degree to look at the responses. If you can just read it out.
Yes, Prabhuji. So the options were that due to they are facing problems in life, that's why they joined this course, or to know more about God, to understand how to create balance in their life, to explore spiritual side of the life, to know how to manage well in a crisis situation, or to avoid depressive and negative thoughts. And almost 46% people have responded that they wanted to explore the spiritual side of life.
Thank you. We'll discuss more on the subject matter as we proceed ahead. I hope you all know how to access your course on the website. The video, the PPT would all be uploaded there. So you can always refer, because I just saw a question by Mother Mathili asking D for desire, what is U stands for. So don't worry, all the notes will be shared. You can always look back at the PPT. And in case if you have questions, you are part of some other WhatsApp group, you can always post a question there. And as and when time permits, we can always come back. Thank you all and have a wonderful evening. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, all the audience who have joined from the different parts of country. And thank you so much that you got to know about this particular course from your friends, family members, or maybe through the WhatsApp or Facebook communication. We look forward to have all of you for tomorrow's session also, which is going to be part 2 of today's discussion. So please do attend tomorrow's session. Do not miss tomorrow's session, because that is going to be in continuation of what we have discussed so far. We look forward to have more and more questions, engaging sessions from all of you. You can register. We have already mentioned the registration link with all of you. Please do register over there, because through the registration, you will be able to have access to the PPT, videos, lectures. In case if you are not able to attend on the particular time, then you can look at the recording also. So please do join. Please do register. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. In case if I have missed out any questions, so I have noted down and we'll take it tomorrow also. Thank you so much to all attendees from the Zoom live as well as from the YouTube.